Hi, Luke. So good to see you again on Unfix's platform. I'm just so excited for this session. So, for everyone here, today we're going to be talking to holistic coach Luke Coutinho, who's so well known for his holistic approach to lifestyle, mental health, physical health, immunity. And we're going to talk to him about sleep and health. And we'll fill in a little bit about sleep and memory as well. So, Luke, great to have you here again. It's really a privilege to get to talk to you.
No, it's good to be here, and thanks. I enjoyed my last session with you. We had a lot of people who were really interested in what you do and what you share, and I'm happy that they are now consulting with you, and they've just reported fabulous, fabulous results. So I'm happy this is working, and I'm really happy that your practice is also bringing out, the holistic way of looking at things, like sleep. A lot of people don't focus on sleep. They focus on everything else. There's book knowledge, and then there's experience and everything else. So I'm really happy that you're bringing to light all of these smaller but yet very powerful and important topics as well. So I'm happy to be here.
Likewise, likewise. So, Luke, just starting off, right? What's the importance of sleep when it comes to immunity? Because you do work with a lot of cancer patients and diabetes patients. To these patients, for both curing and preventing diseases, what's sort of the role that good sleep has?
So sleep is everything. There's a reason why human beings sleep. If it was not important, it wouldn't be built into our intelligent mechanism. So everyone sleeps, right? From animals to human beings. We need sleep because while we sleep, there are many, many functions that happen that can only happen while we sleep. So while the body is very resilient and there are many nights we can go sleepless, we will still survive, but we will not thrive. So while we sleep, there are many functions that happen. And in relation to cancer, or for that matter, any disease, we look at immunology as the base. Because no matter what you have, if the immune system isn't working the right way, you cannot get better. You can get better with a lot of allopathy, which may be necessary, but it's only treating the symptoms. You never address the root cause of the patient. So a patient may go into remission with the chemotherapy and radiation, but then they may also keep getting the cancer over and over again until they actually start fitting in their lifestyle changes, looking at nutrition, movement, sleep, chronic stress, and all of that. So while we sleep, there are many things that happen, and I'll state it right now so that we can relate to the functions of sleep through the remainder of the session. So all growth and repair happens while we sleep. If you fall down, you get hurt, the scab doesn't grow during the day. It grows when you wake up in the morning. It happens while you sleep.
I didn't know
Your
that.
beard, like a man's beard, will only grow during the day. Hair on a woman's body will grow only while you sleep. It's not going to grow while you're awake. It all happens while you're asleep, showing that growth, repair, all happens while we sleep. When we wake up in the morning, our mouth smells. We have dirt between our eyes. We have the urge to pass a motion. All of this is detoxification, signifying that while we're sleeping, the body cleans up and accumulates the toxins to be, eliminated from the body next day. So that's another reason why we sleep. Your hormonal balance happens while you sleep. So if you're sleep deprived, you wake up with a hormonal imbalance. And we know that because we have hunger cravings, because of the hormones, ghrelin, leptin, everything is thrown into havoc. Your blood sugar levels in a diabetic is out of place. Your thyroid levels as well when you're sleep deprived. So as you can see, when we sleep, the body performs all these functions that it cannot perform when we are awake, including rejuvenation, the brain. The detoxification of the brain can only happen while you sleep because of the glymphatic system that activates only in deep sleep. So you see, if we're sleep deprived, we have all these issues because the body cannot perform their daily functions. And that is why when you talk about cancer and diabetes for a cancer patient, we're trying to get the immune system strong. We're trying to protect the healthy cells from the cancer and from the chemotherapy and radiation. So when the patient sleeps well, all of this can happen. But if the patient is sleep deprived, now you have a low immune system and you have a disease that involves a malfunction or a breakdown of the immune system. So like any disease, the immune system is important. Sleep is also important.
Lovely. Thanks for that, Luke. That really helps explain sort of how the immune system works. So now, how does sleep relate to the immune system? Because I do know that in my practice, I've seen that it increases the fight or flight response when you've not slept properly. When you sort of have low sleep, that increases your the whole nervous system kind of goes into activity, and that causes an inflammation response in the immune system, right? And from what I know, cancer cells use this to their advantage, right? And they sort of lure these inflammatory factors into tumor mass. So sort of how do you target this when it comes to sleeping and cancer patients, or, when the prevention of cancer?
Right. So inflammation is not a bad thing. It's part of the immune response. But the problem is when the immune system doesn't know when to switch it off and it becomes inflammatory in nature, like chronic inflammation. So as you rightly said, inflammation contributes to a tumor mass. So if the patient is sleep deprived, they anyway have inflammation and they already have a disease in the body. But this inflammation, so while we sleep, it's very important for our genes as well. Good genes can switch on and switch off. We can upregulate and downregulate genes. So the environment, which is described by epigenetics, one of the important environments that we can create for ourselves within our body is sleep. So when we sleep deeply, our genes are able to turn on and turn off at the right time. But if I'm sleep deprived, I can actually upregulate a bad gene and I can downregulate a good gene. What that simply means is I can turn on a bad gene and I can turn off a good gene that's meant to protect me. So this disruption in sleep affects your immune system signaling pathways and everything else. So, we all know that our immune system is designed to protect us, but sometimes our immune system can attack us. So like autoimmune diseases, a lot of them are related. It's multifactorial, but sleep plays a huge role. In a lot of our clients, I would say 99% of them, when they're sleep deprived, they have flare-ups. So their lupus could get worse, their arthritis could get worse, their eczema, psoriasis, multiple sclerosis could get worse when they're sleep deprived. But when they sleep well, they find that their flare-ups are better, along with everything else. Like I said, it's multifactorial. I cannot say alone that sleep deprivation will cause a cancer, but indirectly, absolutely yes. And I'll explain why. So if I'm sleep deprived, we already established a low immune system. In fact, medical science has shown as a correlation between a decrease in your NK cells, which are your natural killer cells that are meant to protect us from cancer, a 60 to 70% drop when we're sleep deprived for 2 to 3 nights. So my sleep deprivation disables my immune system. Now I could be fit, I could be healthy, but with a disabled immune system, I can just be in the wrong place at the wrong time, breathed in some pollutants or carcinogens, or eaten some food with a pesticide. But my immune system, which would ideally protect me, is now literally disabled. It's functioning at 30 to 40%. So sleep deprivation indirectly is linked not just with cancer, but every single disease out there, including the 5 to 6% of genetic diseases. Right. Because sleep can upregulate and downregulate. So that's the connection.
And going off that, I know there's a deep sort of connection between Alzheimer's and sleep deprivation, right? Because it happens to be that when you're in deep sleep, the brain sort of washes away, the sort of waste from the brain that increase the risk for Alzheimer's. So how does this work?
Absolutely, you're right about that. So, when you Google Alzheimer's today, it's really, really sad that the first things that you'll find is that, Alzheimer's cannot be treated. It's a degenerative disease, but no one's talking about prevention. In fact, I just got back from New York and you'd be surprised. There are ads on television and the buses for Alzheimer's medication, for arthritic medications, but no one's talking about prevention or addressing the root cause, which shows you that a lot of content out on the internet is actually funded to put fear into people. But the point is, people should know that if I want to prevent Alzheimer's, like right now, I'm 43 years old. If I want to prevent Alzheimer's, or if you are 35 or 25 or whatever it is, what you need to do to prevent Alzheimer's starts today.
Yeah.
It's what we do today. Absolutely. So my sleep has to be good today. I can't get Alzheimer's and then say, okay, I'm going to sleep better now, because the damage is already done. Because exactly like you said, the lymphatic system, the human body can detoxify through the skin, the lungs, the liver, the kidney, and the colon. But the brain can only detoxify when the lymphatic system is activated, which is in deep sleep. So the more, we all know that Alzheimer's is an accumulation of proteins, or beta amyloid proteins. Right. Yeah, plaque. So you're accumulating it over the years. It's like alcohol. Like when we're young, we can get away with alcohol and we'll fight with our parents, say, oh, it doesn't affect me. See, I'm fine. I'm working. I'm great. But the slow death of your neurons and brain cells has already started. So I can drink, but if I'm overdoing it and I'm sleep deprived and I have a poor lifestyle, the burden is so much that I can aggravate and I can expedite the slowing and the killing of my brain cells. So right. All of these things are connected, sleep, number one, with Alzheimer's. There is such a direct connection. All my Alzheimer's patients, every one of them, when we consult with them, they have a history of poor sleep and sleep deprivation over the last 15 years. So yes, that is a contributing factor towards Alzheimer's.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because sleeping more is actually, a feature of later stage dementia as well, right? So as the disease progresses, people tend to sleep more.
Exactly.
So you sometimes wonder what comes first, right? The sort of lack of sleep or the disease. But that your question sort of explains that it's sort of an interaction of all the factors, whether that's your behavior, your lifestyle, your eating habits, and sleep is a big one that you can control. So, like you're saying, right, it can probably trigger a gene that's already present in your body. Um, with Alzheimer's, especially, and I'm sure other mental health conditions as well. When it comes to mental health conditions, right, what do you think is the role of sleep in increasing the stress response of the body? So, it also turns out that naturally, when you sleep less, the next morning you wake up sort of really stressed out. I know this happens to me when I have sleepless nights, when I've overdone caffeine.
Yeah, so there's a direct connection, and that's a great question. It's also a vicious cycle because if I'm stressed out, I can't sleep. My mind is always working. It's focused on what's not going well. It's focused on all the mishaps I have in life, the struggles, the breakups, whatever. I'm only focused on that, so I cannot sleep. And now it's a vicious cycle. But we have to break that cycle because if I am sleep deprived, it doesn't give me or my cells or my body the energy the next day to actually live a proper life. Like, the bigger the problem, the more energy you need. That's why soldiers, all of that, they're always trained. They're constantly trained to be strong, mentally, physically, emotionally. Why? Because the enemy is always going to be stronger. So now if I have 5 problems, but I'm sleep deprived, these 5 problems, if they're a level 1 on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest.
Sorry, Luke, I lost you for a second.
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. So if your stress is on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, okay? So if I'm at a level 1, but I'm sleep deprived, that level 1 can seem to be a level 5.
Absolutely.
Because we don't have, that's why we sleep, to rejuvenate, to wake up with energy, physically, mentally, spiritually as well. That's why some people feel spiritually drained and they don't even have energy anymore to pray or to meditate, or, you're completely drained. We need energy for everything. So yes, in cases of depression, mental health, it is important to correct these factors, because there are direct correlations of medical science with depression and lack of sleep as well. Sometimes we may not be depressed. I'm not taking away from people who are really depressed, but a lot of people carelessly use the word. Just because they're going through some sadness in life
feeling
doesn't
depressed.
mean they're depressed.
That's right.
Right. But now you're sleep deprived, and that sadness becomes huge in your life. And you start Googling and relating your symptoms, and then you self-diagnose yourself as depressed.
Absolutely. It's sort of a cognitive distortion that sort of keeps repeating itself, where you're looking for evidence that you're depressed, and that feeds to itself. But yeah, I totally agree with you about, depression and sleeping problems, right? There are what now? 300 million people worldwide, right, who sort of have a depression or a mood disorder. And I think it must be around 75 or 80% of those depressed people show symptoms of insomnia, right? And it's sort of a negative feedback loop, because when you have poor sleep, then it worsens depression. And that further interrupts sleep, because now you can't sleep because you have all these intrusive thoughts about not being good enough, right? Not performing enough. And it also opens, this feedback loop where in the morning, again, I'm like, I can't even sleep well. I can't perform on tasks. And that feeds back into my depression. So I think focusing on sleep is such a new avenue, even for research on depression. I think that could be super effective. As well as this, there's also this disorder, especially in cold countries, which is called seasonal affective disorder, right? And that's actually a subtype of depression. And it occurs in people where there is sort of less sunlight and low daylight hours, right? So in northern climates, right, people experience, especially during fall and the winter, but it's really tied to your circadian rhythm. Which obviously includes a lot of processes, one of them being sleep, right? So people with seasonal affective disorder tend to sleep too much or too little. And it's all about sort of the sleep cycle. So, going off that, how can we improve this circadian rhythm, and how important is that to maintaining good sleep hygiene?
It's very important to understand that generations before us that lived in these countries didn't have these problems. It was called the winter blues or whatever, because you felt low. But that's also tied in with your vitamin D3 levels, which is why it is so important for us to understand if your vitamin D3 levels are low, and it will be low because there is no sunlight. And especially today, people's diets are extreme and a lot of people don't eat the right foods that have omegas, okay, or have vitamin D3. And if you're low on vitamin D3, that can further make you feel those winter blues, can further make you feel like you're depressed, but you're really not. Secondly, the lack of exercise. It is so important for people to be active. So even in cold countries like this, people were active. They stepped out. They did physical labor. But today, because we're you light up the fireplace, you get a hot chocolate, and you sit in front of TV, in front of the television, or you're on your screen all the time. So we need to see that by tying in your vitamin D3 levels, your exercise and your movement, and again, your sleep. So even though the timing of the sunset may be different than sunrise, you still maintain your circadian rhythm. So if your bedtime is 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock, you still go to sleep. You don't change that because things around you have changed. So you reset your circadian rhythm and you keep it consistent. But today, irrespective of the changes in weather, timings, or whatever, people are sleeping in different timings every day. Yeah. Every day. Sometimes. So what happens is you already have a disrupted circadian rhythm. It really doesn't matter on what time the sun is rising or setting because you're sleeping at a different time every day. So at least Monday to Friday, try to keep your sleep cycles the same. Enjoy your weekend, but then come back into the rhythm. That's the first way to try to reset your circadian rhythm.
Yeah, and I've also heard that it's sort of like even if you don't if there's not like one weekend that you can make up on sleep. I always when clients come to me, they're like, I'm just going to use Saturday, Sunday to catch up on all the sleep.
Doesn't work.
It's not a debt amount that you can just sort of hope to repay at some time, right? It doesn't work like that because it's all about that cycle, and you have to keep it sort of consistent. And one day is not going to make up for those 6 days. How true is that in your
practice?
practice?
Absolutely true. Sleep debt doesn't work at all. Of course, I mean, if you've had a rough week, you can sleep and feel physically better. But the human body is working for you 24/7 every second of the day and night while you sleep. So you can't decide that, okay, by compromising on my sleep, okay, your body's still going to function the way it is, irrespective. Okay, but don't think by sleeping on the weekend, it's going to sort out because you've already woken up with a hormonal imbalance 5 days right. You sleep right. Your sleep on Sunday can't go back and fix those problems. So it's important for us to do our best every day that we can and prioritize sleep.
So, going off that, what is the right or magic amount of sleep? And, given the recent years, there's so many added things like the advent of electricity and so many different stressors and flexible working hours with COVID. Has this right amount of sleep changed over the years? And if so, what's the right amount that we should be getting of sleep?
There is no amount because everyone is different. Everyone is different. So if you go by book knowledge and by research and by whatever, just for people to learn in schools and universities, they put it as anywhere between 6.5 to 8 hours is perfect for you. But we look at it differently. The way we teach our people is to ask yourself when you wake up in the morning, am I rested? Do I feel ready to start my day without the dependency of a stimulant? If yes, that was enough of sleep for you. If no, you've not slept enough. And it can be different every day. We can't put ourselves into a box of 7 to 8 because every day is different. Today, if I've used a lot of physical energy and mental energy, my body is going to want more sleep. Mm-hmm. I can't put myself into a box like people do. It's a great average to know. And on a day where I've been more sedentary and I'm relaxed and happy, my body may wake me up earlier the next day because it doesn't need that much of sleep. So the question to ask yourself is arrive at your own average. There are few people in the world who hold a gene that allowed them to sleep for just 4 hours, and they are absolutely energetic.
A lot.
Yes, but that's a few people. A lot of people like to think they have that gene. But if you have to wake up to a cup of coffee, you need stimulants throughout the day to keep you awake. You find slumps of energy. You got to look back at your sleep, not eating more carbs and sugar. And if you find that you're craving a lot of carbs and sugar because your body needs instant energy, what's the root cause? Are you sleep deprived? So like for me, my average is,
because of the hormones that you were talking about, like ghrelin.
Leptin and ghrelin. Yeah, they get impacted with sleep deprivation. So no matter how strong you are, you will be battling cravings. And you're not supposed to live life by battling cravings. That's the most miserable position to be in. So you got to correct the hormonal imbalance by sleeping well. So it could be 6 hours for some people, 7, 8. But overdoing sleep is also bad for you. So if you're sleeping in because you're feeling depressed or you have no purpose or you don't want to get up and all, once in a way, it's fine. But if you're doing that, you really got to reset your sleep cycles because oversleeping isn't good for the brain and it isn't good for the heart as well.
Right. Yeah. And that brings me to another link, right? Sleep and cardiovascular health. So a lot of cardiovascular health problems start in middle age. And this also happens to be the time that all of us tend to focus more on our career and things get sort of really heightened for us. Our responsibilities get heightened. So what's sort of the link between cardiovascular health and sleep then?
There's a direct link because if you're sleep deprived, you produce inflammation. If there's inflammation, your arteries lose elasticity. And if you lose elasticity, there's more problem. There are more possibilities of plaque formation. You reduce the possibility of angiogenesis, which is the body and the heart's ability to grow new blood vessels when there's a blockage in one, when you're sleep deprived. So there's a direct link with sleep deprivation and inflammation in the heart. So yes, while we grow in our careers and all of that, that's fine. The body can support you, but if you make it a habit, we are going to have to pay with the consequences of our habits.
Yeah, and especially because sleep deprivation also affects blood pressure, right? Because it speeds sort of your contraction rate of a person's heart, right? And also it increases systolic blood pressure.
Yes. Right. So that's a direct connection between heart disease and sleep deprivation.
So do you recommend different hours of sleep then for those who are at higher risk for heart disease genetically?
No, absolutely not. They should sleep and wake up rested. When they're rested, they know they slept enough, but we don't have to prescribe more sleep for them at all.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting to know. And what about, going back at that description about leptin and ghrelin, can you tell our audience a little bit more about those hormones and how they trigger hunger? And I know one of them sort of keeps you from your appetite and tells you when you're full, and the other one stimulates hunger. Can you talk more about that?
So ghrelin is the hunger hormone. When ghrelin is stimulated, we feel hungry and we eat. Leptin is the satiety hormone. So when we've got enough of food in us, leptin increases, shutting off the signaling of ghrelin in the brain, and we don't feel hungry anymore. But when I'm sleep deprived, leptin is suppressed, which means the body doesn't know when it's full, and ghrelin is increased. So we're hungry all the time. And that's why we don't stop eating. So that's more of a hormonal. And then people link it with a behavioral issue. They label themselves as greedy or they're not successful and all of that stuff. And now they feel depressed. But actually, it's a hormonal issue that has to be corrected by balancing your hormones through sleep.
Right. Yeah. So, and what's the link between sort of, eating foods and sleeping? Is there certain types of food that increase our ability to sleep better at night?
There is a connection. Like chamomile definitely helps you to relax. Certain teas which are rich in L-theanine can have a very calming effect. Foods that are rich in amino acids and tryptophan that helps you fall asleep because tryptophan is needed to produce serotonin, and it has connections with melatonin and all of that. All of this is connected. So yes, there are foods, but we can't just say I'm going to have chamomile and it's going to sort out my food problems. They're good foods to calm you down. They also have a lot of polyphenols and antioxidants that also help you while you're sleeping. So yes, there are cherries. Cherries are great. You have natural melatonin as well, valerian root. It can all help you to sleep better.
Pistachio as well, right? I believe.
Absolutely. But you got to really see what is my root cause of sleep. So if your root cause is something else like stress, I don't think food can fix that. Then it's your breathing, your meditation, your pranayama, your counseling. What are some of the techniques that you use? I'm sure you see a lot of patients who have, depression and sleep deprivation and mental health problems, and you see the synergies. What are some of the techniques that you use?
So it's very interesting you bring that up. There's a whole new field called CBTI, which is CBT for insomnia. So here at Unfix Your Feelings, we do a lot of this. And what we do is we target this root cause, right? Because in people with insomnia, there are often inaccurate thoughts about sleep that making sleeping difficult, right? So for example, if I have a prior experience of insomnia, then I'm going to keep worrying about falling asleep. Now, what's that worry going to do? It's not going to let me sleep again. So it sort of makes you spend a lot of time in bed trying to sleep and trying to force it, which obviously makes it much worse because worry and a lot of time in bed both make falling and staying asleep really challenging. And it's sort of this frustrating cycle that clients go through. So what we do here is we use cognitive restructuring, which means we identify and then challenge the thoughts related to insomnia, right? And we address sort of these common thoughts that include anxiety. Sometimes it's past flashbacks of trauma, Also, the unrealistic expectations of sleep. Something very interesting you talked about is that everyone needs a different amount of sleep. And some of my clients tend to believe that, no, you need 8 or 9 hours. And when they know I have to wake up at 7 a.m. and, oh shit, it's already 3 a.m. now, I'm not going to get that enough amount of sleep, then that sort of makes them feel more anxious and feeds into that cycle. So once these thoughts are identified, we challenge them and we alter them and help them assess their thoughts more objectively. Often what I do to assess thoughts also is I let clients know that, when you're sleeping, it's the one time of the day that you're giving your body rest. And when you sort of tend to give your body rest, it starts to start racing and thinking. So plan a mindful minute in different parts of your day to sort of note down your worries. So you know that they're going to get addressed at some point, so that there's not a build-up as soon as you hit bed. Keeping a worry diary is something we do as well. And then we also have a behavioral intervention, which is called stimulus control. Because a lot of people, right, when they come into me, they're like, can't sleep at night. I don't want to even look at my bedroom because I'm associating with the frustration I feel not being able to sleep. So, we say that the bed can only be used for sleep and for sex. So do not use it for TV because it sort of gets associated with the activity of sleeping. So you're programming your brain quite literally that once I'm in bed, I'm not going to get up. So I often tell clients, if you're not getting sleep, beyond 30 minutes, you're not getting sleep, go to another room and walk around, but do not stay in the same room. So it's very interesting how that external stimulus and changing the way you relate to it can really improve your sleep. So that's sort of the few techniques that we use here, along with, of course, some relaxation training. Mindfulness is so important. And one of the techniques we use here is progressive muscle relaxation, right? Which we I'm sure you've heard of this, but we sort of relax different groups of the body with breathing exercises and guided imagery that helps sleeping better. So yeah, I know that was a lot, but that's sort of the techniques we use here at Unfix. It of course depends on the client and their concerns.
And that's amazing. It's very interesting also how, we've been telling people not to use the word insomnia, because the dictionary definition of insomnia is someone who cannot sleep at all. But most insomniacs sleep, even if you're sleeping 1 hour or 2 hours, you're not insomniac. Yeah. So that very word insomniac now starts becoming a negative self-label that they use. Oh, I have insomnia. I don't sleep. I say, how many hours do you sleep? 2 hours. You're not insomniac. Insomnia is when you cannot sleep at all. And there are a few people in the world who cannot even sleep. They don't even, I've had maybe 2 patients in 9 years, but the rest of them are sleeping at least 3-4 hours, but they label themselves. They start to behave like an insomniac. So it's very interesting that you brought that up, because what we label ourselves also becomes the way that we start to behave.
Learned helplessness, right? After all. So I think that's a big part of it. I think some of the other things we say is stick to a sleep schedule, right? So that your body gets used to it. And like you were talking about, that circadian rhythm. Also, I don't know what you think about this, and I wanted to ask you more about it. But a lot of people I see seem to function better when they exercise in the first half of the day, because in the second half of the day, then they're not tired enough to sleep, which is a very strange association. Do you see that a lot, and how do we explain that?
Yeah, I mean, scientifically, it doesn't make sense for someone to exercise late evening, because after exercise, what happens? The body's charged up. And a lot of people can't sleep. But to be fair, I know a lot of people who exercise late evening and they sleep beautifully. So it's very difficult to say what's right for everyone. That's why I will never tell people morning is better or evening. You need to find out, because everyone's different. So morning works for you, great. If evening works for you, great. But get the exercise done without compromising your sleep.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, everyone has different needs. So there's no one size fits all. So, as you said, I know I watched one of your lives and they're very interesting and so informative. I think one of them, in one of the things you said was, it's not just the quantity, but also the quality of sleep that matters to you. So how do you suggest we improve the quality of sleep?
Again, your body will automatically put you into a deep quality of sleep when you are well into the parasympathetic nervous system. So if I get to the parasympathetic nervous system and I can stay there, I automatically go into deep sleep. So again, cutting out all the chatter from your brain before sleeping, blue light from your phones, from your gadgets, because that will affect your deep sleep, calming down the mind, setting an intention before sleep. Today, intentional, you can set an intention before anything. I set an intention before I eat, before I do a patient consult, before I travel. An intention is like you setting the course of how you want it to be. So I set an intention last night before I slept, because I'm jet lagged and usually you wake up at 3 a.m. So I set an intention to wake up in the morning without getting up once between the night. So you set that little auto suggestion in the subconscious of your mind. So setting intentions for a deep sleep, and in this deep sleep, your cells are going to repair, you're going to be rejuvenated, your hormones are going to be back. You set that little intention. All of these are very helpful. But deep breathing is a beautiful way, slowing down your breath before going to bed, your left nostril breathing, meditation, gratitude. These are things that can make you feel good and in the parasympathetic nervous system. And I can fall into a deeper sleep. And of course, the darker the room, the deeper the sleep. Staying away from distractions, keeping your phones off, not letting them beep through the night, the right temperature of the air conditioner, the kind of pajamas, all of these things make a huge, how much water you drank. If you've got to keep up, waking up to, urinate, that's affecting your sleep as well.
That happens a lot.
It's very important to plan all these things for a deeper sleep.
Yeah.
And some people are just blessed. They hit the pillow and they're in a deep sleep.
Yeah. How do you explain that? Is that sort of a genetic thing? Because I know my own dad and my sister, they hit the pillow and anywhere they are, they're on an airplane, they're in a car, they can just fall asleep. And my mom and me are very light sleepers. So they usually put us to bunk together and we keep tossing around. So does that have anything to do with our lifestyle or the way we're programmed? How does that work? How do you explain personally?
I think it's different. It's different for everyone. If it has something to do with your lifestyle, you would know, because maybe you're thinking thoughts, or be aware of what you're thinking when you're restless. That could be preventing you from falling asleep. Or like for me, darkness works. So if I put an eye mask on the flight, I'm going to fall asleep immediately. But if there's even a dot of light on in a room, I cannot sleep. So it's different for everyone. I don't know if it's genetic in any way. So I really don't have an answer to that part of the question. But yeah, I guess some people are just blessed. But a lot of them also fall asleep, sleep deeply, and wake up tired. Exactly. A lot of them. So it's really dependent from person to person.
You kind of find your own sleep practice and what works best for you, I'm guessing. Huh? So while you're sleeping, I think one of the other mental health benefits is learning and forgetting information. How helpful has that been to your clients? When you sleep, do you see that they end up retaining better information the next day?
Yeah, absolutely. Your sleep and your memory is directly interconnected with each other. So neurodegeneration happens even in kids today. Yeah. Kids who are constantly drinking aerated drinks and junk food and stimulants and stuff like that, and are sleep deprived, because even the average time of a child going to bed has changed drastically over the last couple of years. Today, kids, you can see them like whether it's Dubai, or you'll see kids out at like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and not just on weekends. So I think parents need to understand that brain cell death is happening because of sleep deprivation. And then parents get angry with their kids or teenagers because their grasping power is going down. Number one, they're not feeding them the right foods. No rich omega-3 foods. Number two, there's sleep deprivation. Number three, they're constantly eating junk food and chemicals and preservatives that is coming in between all of these functions. So yes, your learning capacity and sleep and deep rest is very, very, very important. They're directly connected with each other.
Yeah, I think I've seen that, the way I explain to clients is that there's this region in your brain called the hippocampus, right? And it's a temporary store for short-term memories, but it has sort of this limited storage capacity. So think of your iPhone. When you have like 1 million pictures, it's not going to be able to take in more information. So if you exceed its capacity, then it can't store more, right? But in comparison, you wake up with a clean iPhone, you can take more pictures. So the same way you wake up sort of cleansed and detoxed, like you said, all your memories are transferred to long-term storage, and it has room to make more memories. And in fact, in one of the books I highly recommend to all my clients when they have trouble sleeping, it's called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Right. And it's just revolutionary. And he said that it's actually the same about sleeping after you learn something new, right? It's almost like clicking the save button on files that you've created during the day. So that's a very interesting perspective with learning and memory when you sleep, right? Like another thing I describe it to clients as is like, it's like when you sleep, when you're working on low sleep, it's like working on a cluttered desk. There's no room to add more to your plate. That's a very interesting link that you made as well. How about dreaming? It's also true, I think, through research that dreaming has a very important role in sleep.
Yeah, it does. It's not really my subject of expertise, but the little that we know is, a lot of our patients who dream a lot and can remember their dreams have had very light sleep and they're tired. They wake up tired. Some people dream, they don't remember their dreams, but they wake up absolutely fresh. Some people get stuck in a dream. and it's persisting like for 2-3 hours and stuff, they wake up tired because the mind is partly awake in a way. So there are all of these things. It's not my expertise. I've not gone too deep into the subject of dreams and
It's a
stuff
very
like
new
that.
subject. Yeah, we're all
Yes.
studying it as psychologists as well.
But it has an impact on the quality of your sleep and how you may wake up. Yeah.
Right. So, Luke, coming to sort of the last section of it, I was wondering what role supplements have in sleeping, because if it's true that sleep has so many health benefits, then, with the advent of technology and light and, caffeine and, longer waking hours, what's the role of supplements? Can they help in any function when
Absolutely. Absolutely. Quality supplements and supplements taken for the right reasons, not because they sound good. But see, we have to understand that supplements are not a replacement for poor lifestyle. You still got to change your lifestyle, but there's melatonin, valerian root, there's GABA, there's tryptophan, there's 5-HTP. There are loads of supplements. There's ashwagandha, there's brahmi, which is for memory. There are so many different supplements out there. But if you think you can take a supplement and it's going to solve a problem that you need to solve with your lifestyle, the supplement is a waste of money and a waste of time. But let's say, for example, you are a patient going through a condition where you're on a particular medication that is depleting something, and now you nutritionally supplement that, or your diet is poor, or you have a colorectal cancer and you cannot absorb nutrition. Supplements play a huge role over there as well. Or your jet lag. Like I use melatonin when I travel to New York because I need that push. Because you're in a plane with lights on, airports, all of that stuff. So I need to create my own melatonin. I'll use a supplement. But the moment I'm out of jet lag, I won't use it anymore. Right. So the point is
when to use it.
You need to know when to use it, and supplements can be very, very, very powerful. Yes.
And what's your opinion on sleep medication? I think so many people are on it now, and I personally find it to be very harmful. But what's your view on it?
When people I think it's terrible. While few people definitely need it. They need a combination of sleep and anti-anxiety. Sometimes you've gotten bad news, you need to be sedated, you're going through a deadly terminal disease. Absolutely, yes. But today, the way the pharmaceuticals have pushed it, it's become a way of life. So people don't want to correct their problem. They want a quick fix, which is a sleeping pill. But they don't understand that after a while, they're going to get immune to that dosage and then they're going to need something heavier. And the biggest part is they don't understand the mechanism of a sleeping pill. How does it work? By slowing down your entire metabolism. So that's why a lot of people on sleeping pills start to put on weight. They start to put on weight. They start to be metabolically low. They start to have metabolic issues. They start to be groggy throughout the day. So you see, it comes with all of its side effects. It's a $1 trillion industry. But because there are consumers out there who want quick fixes. Can't sleep, here, take a pill. So it's absolutely dangerous if you take it when it's not required to be taken.
Absolutely. I think one of the most popular drugs is Ambien, right?
Ambien.
And I know that when I read some studies done on animals, there was a difference in which memories were stored with patients with Ambien. So even though they had the same amount of sleep, natural sleep, it's no replacement for natural sleep, because natural sleep sort of solidifies memory much more than Ambien. In fact, Ambien turned out to sort of cut existing connections in the brain, which are important to learning. So yeah, that just goes to validate your point and show that there is no replacement for natural sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so you look in New York City, for example, the two most commonly used drugs are an Ambien or an Adderall. And you find that the users of an Ambien will use Adderall because they can't stay focused. They need to learn. So you see, you're getting into a vicious cycle of one requiring another one. And then you have drugs like Zolfresh, which should be banned across the country, across the world. In fact, some countries have banned it already because it's the most useless and the most dangerous sleeping medication.
In local, in India, what is that known as?
It's Zolfresh. It's known as Zolfresh. You make the patient into a zombie. They'll sleep, but the entire next day they're zombies. So there is far better medication than a Zolfresh, and people should be very, very, I mean, I'm not against allopathy. We practice allopathy with our medical doctors, but I think, it's very important, like in all forms of medicine, that doctors as well, including psychologists, nutritionists, like all of us, we need to keep updating our knowledge and understand that there are far better drugs than a Zolfresh. A Zolfresh is old school and it's detrimental to human behavior and health. So yeah, that's all.
And I think sleeping pills target the very same area of the brain, right, as alcohol does.
Absolutely.
It reduces sort of that higher order function. What role does alcohol have in sleep?
So alcohol, I'll take this as the last question because I have a patient
I'm
after
really
this right
sorry.
now.
Sure,
So
Luke.
no worries. Yeah. So alcohol, of course, people think they can sleep better with alcohol, but it's actually the opposite. They fall asleep because they're also tired and they're fatigued, their liver slowed down, but it's not deep sleep. Because if you slept really deeply after alcohol, most people wouldn't wake up with a hangover, right? That's why when you have a hangover, you feel like sleeping. So
Yeah.
alcohol, again, slows down neuron activity in the brain. It creates slow dying of the brain cells. This, again, is for people who are overdoing it and doing it too much. Because I know people who are 96 years old, they still have 2 drinks a day and they're absolutely fine. So it is really the person behind the bottle, the attitude. Why am I drinking? Am I filling a void? Am I really enjoying it? Am I overdoing it? Am I binge drinking to be cool? All of that messes you up because a lot of people think that, oh, the weekends come, let's drink. It's a stress buster. In no way is alcohol a stress buster. You think it is because it's only distracting you from your problems. But once your high is down, you're left in reality with your problems, and now you need more because you never learn. You know, alcohol, people who misuse it, they never really learn how to fix their problems in life,
Right.
address their emotions, address their
The
sadness,
underlying problem.
address their problems. So it only builds up more and more, and then the alcohol builds up more and more, and that's how people become alcoholics. That's how it is. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Luke, for joining us. To all our audience members, we let them sleep over this, quite literally, and process everything you have to say. Your sessions are so valuable, and looking forward to another collaboration soon.
Thank you so much. Always great seeing you, and continue the amazing work you're doing. Take care.
You.